10. The tragic death of Victoria STRAUSS. On the night of January 18, 2021, in Columbus, Ohio, Victoria STRAUSS was killed. The tragic accident involved Victoria, her car, and a pavement kiosk in a parking garage. At just 23 years old, Victoria died from mechanical asphyxiation. It happened when her head got jammed between her vehicle and the payment machine in the parking garage. She was trying to pay for parking when she somehow slipped her head out of her vehicle, wedged it tightly against the machine, and couldn't get it unstuck. Victoria died at 11:37 at night and wasn't found until the next day at 5:40 in the morning. A security guard saw her body stuck between the car and the machine and called the police. When the police did their autopsy, they couldn't find any drugs in her system, but the coroner did note a blood alcohol level of 0.221. So it's not like it was a freak accident, perhaps just more of an intoxicated one. Regardless of if Victoria had been drinking before driving into the parking lot, we know everything that happened thanks to the security footage. As she was trying to pay, she dropped her card on the ground. This may have been because she was drinking, we don't really know. She opened her door to pick her card up and at the same time accidentally accelerated. Her car hit the payment kiosk. Her head got wedged between her open door and the frame, and she stopped moving. 9. Early morning attack in Dublin. Gareth Kelly was stabbed to death at 7 o'clock in the morning as he was trying to start his car. It happened in Dublin, Ireland on Tuesday, February 25, 2020. The aggressor in this situation was Christina Anderson. Christina walked out of her house, leaving her husband and children inside, and approached Gareth calmly and killed him. This was horrible from every front. First of all, Gareth and Christina didn't even know each other. The two had never met in their life. Garrett had no idea what was about to happen to him. He had opened up the hood of his car to look at the engine because his car wouldn't start. He saw Christina coming but didn't know who she was or what she wanted. He may even have thought she was coming to help. But those thoughts left his brain immediately as she plunged the knife into him over and over again. According to the Irish Times, the motivation for Christina's brutal crime was a parking space. Gareth had spent the night at his partner's house in the same area as the apartment complex and had apparently taken the wrong parking space. Christina was allegedly so furious that someone had parked in the wrong spot that she waited until they came back to their car to murder them. Cue the Psycho theme song. She has since been taken into psychiatric care, and all this time later is still waiting to be sentenced for her crime. 8. Brawl at COSTCO. In a COSTCO parking lot in Mississauga, Ontario, a brawl erupted over a disagreement. It was a weekend in 2016 and nobody had any idea what COVID was yet. To be quite honest, nobody really knew quite how good they had it at that moment. And yet, a couple of people just couldn't get along, all over a parking spot. The disagreement ended in a ridiculous outburst of anger and fist flying. It all started when a man named Joe Carriero was walking back to his car after getting some great deals at COSTCO. Why else would anybody go to COSTCO except for the great deals on 300 rolls of toilet paper? His arms were filled with his bulk purchases when he stopped in his tracks. His car had been blocked by two groups arguing over a parking spot. Naturally, Joe took out his phone and started filming the two parties as they screamed at each other. You know the world loves and hates to see this sort of thing. What began with a lot of yelling and pushing ended with one man having an open cut across his head and the rest of the group being subdued by the COSTCO employees. Nobody was seriously injured, but considering the video went viral across Canada, pretty sure they were all very embarrassed. Joe handed the video over to the police as evidence, but nobody was ever charged with anything. For Mississauga, it was just another day at COSTCO. 7. The terrible shooting of Marquise McLaughlin. 28-year-old Marquise McLaughlin was in a parking lot on July 19, 2018. The parking lot was in Clearwater, Florida. a place where the local government still upholds the highly controversial Stand Your Ground law. This law affords citizens the opportunity to defend themselves with deadly force should they feel as if their life is in danger. The issue is that there are different interpretations of danger, and some people say they feel threatened enough to justify a murder. Marquise was shot by a man named Michael Draka in the parking lot. Just before the shooting, Michael had approached Marquise's girlfriend because she had parked in a disabled parking spot and didn't have a placard hanging in her window. We're sure most of us can sympathize with this situation. You see somebody parking in a spot clearly marked for disabled people and you get angry. What if somebody that's actually disabled needs the spot? But things escalated. Marquise got angry back and shoved Michael to the ground as if he was going to beat him up. While lying on his back, Michael drew his handgun and pointed it at Marquise. Marquise was backing away when Michael pulled the trigger and put a bullet in him. Marquise would later die in the hospital from his injuries, and it would turn out that he had been unarmed at the time of the shooting. Michael was not immediately charged for murder. He got away, at first, using the Stand Your Ground law. But after an investigation and a very long trial, he was convicted of manslaughter on August 23, 2019. His sentence was 20 years in prison. Do you think 20 years in prison was too long of a sentence for Michael? Should he have gotten away with murder using the Stand Your Ground law? Let us know your opinions in the comments, and don't forget to hit subscribe before the end of the video. 6. Killed over a parking space. Here we go again. On January 24, 2021, Kiana Singleton was gunned down following a dispute over a parking space. It happened at the M-Bar Sports Grill in Jackson. Her family is desperate for answers, especially considering the circumstances surrounding the shooter. Kiana was killed by Eugenia Funches, a woman who was already out on bond in connection with a different murder in 2019 in Clinton. She had gotten released on a $50,000 bond and was supposed to be home every night before her 10 p.m. curfew. Yet the incident occurred just before 3 o'clock in the morning. Kiana's family is furious that a woman already involved in a murder case was allowed to wander around free and kill their innocent daughter. Kiana was just trying to have a fun night out at a sports grill. As for how the shooting happened in the first place, like I said, it was over a parking space. The two women got into a verbal argument, but then they seemed to go their own separate ways. What Kiana didn't know was that Eugenia was following behind her in a Range Rover. Eugenia pulled up behind Kiana and fired wildly into her vehicle, killing her on the spot. 5. A freak accident. Yet another driver has died in a freak accident while simply trying to park their vehicle. This time it happened at about 9:45 on January 23, 2017. A driver in Brooklyn was trying to park his vehicle, a Toyota Sienna LE, on the side of the road when he got his body stuck between his car door and a tree. How it happened is nothing short of extraordinary. You see, Chen Zeng Lin needed to move his vehicle across the street to avoid getting a ticket because he would have been blocking the street sweepers. He got into his vehicle and instead of using his rearview mirror, popped his head out of the door and reversed. It proved to be the last mistake he would ever make. His head got caught between the frame of the vehicle and a London plane tree. The poor man never saw it coming and probably never even knew what happened. According to eyewitness and neighbor Mark Sarachik, there was blood gushing out of Chen's mouth. He looked like a blood fountain from some terrible horror movie. The EMTs did try to save him. They got him out of the car, gave him CPR, applied oxygen, but there was nothing they could do to fix his squashed brain. When they finally made it to the emergency room, doctors said the pressure put on Chen's brain was just too much for him to survive. 4. Assault in Alaska. An Alaska news anchor was arrested in October of 2020 for assaulting somebody in her station's parking lot. According to the report from the very station Maria Athens was working at, she was charged with assault, disorderly conduct, and criminal mischief. The news anchor was also banned from ever stepping foot on her station's property again. And yes, she lost her job. But the story is more complicated than that. Athens was in a bizarre relationship with the mayor of Anchorage, Ethan Berkowitz. They had been sending each other inappropriate text messages in 2016. In 2020, Athens came across some information that Berkowitz was allegedly posting inappropriate pictures of himself on a website for underage kids. She became enraged and threatened to expose him as a pervert to all of Alaska on the news. She even went so far as to post a photograph of Berkowitz's bare behind as proof of the allegations before she went live on the air. But before she ever had a chance to get on TV, she got into an argument with the station manager, who happened to be her boyfriend. They were driving around Anchorage when he kicked her out of his vehicle and said she was never allowed back at the station. But she went back to the television station anyway and beat the guy up in the parking garage. Then, when the police arrived to take her away, she hit a cop. We don't know how many of the allegations are true. We do know that shortly after the drama, Ethan Berkowitz resigned as the mayor of Anchorage. 3. Falling 3 stories. In February of 2022, a woman of just 25 had the worst motorcycle riding lesson in history. She tragically lost control of the motorcycle and drove straight off the top of a mall parking lot garage in Santa Clarita, California. She was being taught how to drive on the roof of the parking structure by a group of people who may or may not have been very good teachers. A spokesperson for the sheriff's office said one of two things happened. She either lost control of the motorcycle and threw herself over the edge, or she couldn't figure out how to stop. Whichever one it was, the end result was the same. She crashed into the low wall of the garage, went over the handlebars, and fell 3 stories to the hard ground below. Imagine the shock on the shoppers' faces outside Macy's when her body landed on the concrete below their feet. The unfortunate victim was treated at the scene and taken to the hospital, but there was nothing anyone could do to save her life. 2. Bad Memphis security guards. 2 security guards have been accused of assaulting a woman inside the very parking garage they were being paid to protect. It was October in 2021 when the woman and 2 friends parked in the First Parking Place garage in downtown Memphis. They left the garage and came back a little later to get their car. When they tried to get back into the garage, a security guard demanded $30 in cash. The woman refused to pay, saying she was being hustled, and everyone got into an argument. This was when the second security guard showed up pretending to be a police officer. He told the woman she would be arrested if she didn't leave, but when she asked to see his badge, he declined. He then became so angry that she wasn't being an easy victim and handing over the money that he slammed her on the ground and tried to put her in handcuffs. The first security guard has been identified as Lee Tops. The one pretending to be a cop is Matthew Jones. It was as the 2 men were struggling to handcuff the woman that a third security officer was called in for assistance, Michael Taylor. According to what the victim told police, rather than simply handcuff her, the men lifted up her dress and put their greasy paws all over her before she finally managed to break free and get into her friend's vehicle. But the nightmare wasn't over yet. Jones wouldn't let them leave. He stood in front of the car with his handgun pointed at them. But the victim and her friends were smart. They refused to leave the vehicle until Memphis police officers, actual cops, finally arrived. In the end, Jones was charged with 3 counts of aggravated assault and Taylor was charged with a misdemeanor assault. All they got was something equivalent to a 5-minute timeout. Tops never showed up for court and a warrant was issued for his arrest. 1. Tourism in California. A woman visiting the Bay Area of California as a tourist is probably never going back. In summer of 2021, the tourist, who refused to be identified publicly, parked her vehicle in the Bay Street Mall parking garage of Emeryville. When she returned to her car, she was attacked by a group of vicious men, carjacked, kicked, and punched. According to what she told ABC 7 News, it happened in the blink of an eye. Suddenly, there were 2 men running at her, and in the next second, she was on the ground, and everything she owned was gone. She was left with 2 black eyes. This wasn't an isolated incident either. The Emeryville police said it was the 3rd robbery and carjacking in the parking garage since the end of spring in over just 3 months. The perpetrators were never even caught. Thanks for watching. What's the craziest thing you've ever seen while just trying to park your car? Let us know in the comments below and be sure to hit subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time. Bye.